All right. I want to thank Mackenzie Saunders for coming out here. She was from ASU and went all the way where she is now with her cat at Harvard Law School. And this is absolutely amazing. And, I want to thank her for coming out here. I'm not going to talk that much, I promise, because she wants to give everyone at ASU advice, not just about the big law schools, but law school generally speaking. So thanks for coming out, Mackenzie.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Happy to be here. Happy to be
Yeah.
here.
The first question I always get is like, how do you prepare and what do you do to get into law school? Not just say Harvard or Yale or the big law schools, although many want that. What's the best steps to go about here?
There's a lot of good things I think to do. The first thing is kind of just evaluate, like, do you want to do this? Find the purpose of why you're coming, because a lot of people apply to law school thinking that it's like just the next logical step, and halfway through they kind of realize, oh, maybe this wasn't for me, and it's not for everyone. So do the research, figure out why you want to do it, and then next step, reach out to people. If there's a specific, that's Beans.
Yeah, nice cat. He's pretty active.
Yep, he'll be disruptive. Second thing is, reach out. If you have a dream school, reach out to a professor, reach out to students on LinkedIn, email. They will very likely answer. I was very surprised when a disability law professor agreed to meet with me when I toured the school when I was 20, and it was very helpful. He kind of asked my LSAT score, asked what I was doing, and I told him, and he was like, "You're not getting in with that. Like, you got to retake it."
Really?
Yeah, he was blunt.
Wow.
I needed that, so I retook it, and I mean, he was right. I don't think I would have, but no, they'll be honest. They'll give you good advice. Just reach out, ask for help.
I did not know that. That is awesome advice that he said that and he was so forthright.
I work with him all the time now. He's like the main person I work with at the school. But yeah, no, they'll give it to you straight. And I think everyone kind of has their own process for studying for the LSAT, figuring out their application. But
Now, when you retook it, do they just use that one score? Or are they merging the scores into an average?
They see both.
Okay.
So which is good and bad. So they saw my wild score jump. They didn't ask me about it. I was a little scared that they would. But no, yeah. So any that you take will be on there. You can always cancel it like right after the exam if you're not feeling good about it, but might as well just keep it on there.
Now, the first part you said is so true, particularly about political science, because so many people just, well, I got political science, I'll go to law school. Big mistake in a lot of cases. I've talked to people who went to law school. It's a titanic undertaking. Many don't even know that you're not allowed to work, correct me if I'm wrong, for the first year or so. There's not that much money opposed to, like, say, studying a doctorate degree. So that part is really, really important. But reaching out to someone is important for not just law school, all of these postgraduate programs. And I try to say that to the students because they're like, oh, I got a 4.0. But a lot of people have a 4.0, no offense to everyone. So they're definitely, you want to do something that puts you over where someone recognizes you. And also you can work with people in the post, like you just said.
That's the thing. And I have to keep reminding myself, like, people want to help. You're not bugging anyone by reaching out to them. I was always scared of doing that. But whenever people reach out to me, I'm like, oh, this is awesome.
I know you're here now. Thanks.
people love to help. So whatever leverage you can get to make yourself stand out, you got to go for it. If you have a cool perspective, write about it in your personal statement. If you're trying to get connections, reach out to people. You got to do it. It makes it stand out. A lot of people apply to law school.
Yeah. It's so competitive, particularly post-COVID. A lot of people didn't want to go to work, so they got to figure something out. What's your favorite part, but what's the hardest part, do you think? And this is for Harvard, but not just Harvard, obviously, law school, postgraduate school, etc. A lot of people say they suffer at the beginning.
That is exactly, yeah, it's the first year. The first year is for sure the hardest part, specifically the first semester. This is true of every law school. I think it's a very universal experience, but kind of felt like we were being hazed. I was
I was going to say that. Do they make it so difficult to kind of weed you out, or?
Yes, which is funny to me because it's like I already took out the loans. Like I'm stuck here. You can't whatever you do, I'm staying. But no, it's tough. I mean, my first class, professor didn't even do an introduction. He just immediately called on someone and said, "Tell me just a hyper specific question about the case."
Oh,
for a second, we were all terrified. We were like, "Is this how it's gonna be?" But they kind of do it on purpose.
right. Wow, that's what's the best thing you like about it? Like, what do you?
God, I'll say two things. The first thing is I love how like generous professors and like staff are with their time. Like I kind of thought, I don't know, some of these professors are big deals. They've been teaching forever. There's, everywhere there's going to be brilliant professors, and if you just email them and ask them for their time, like they'll meet and talk to you about their path. They'll connect you with whoever you want in their network. And I really appreciate that. And then the second thing is I love all the little details. I think the fact that I get really excited about like 150-page deposition, like reading through transcripts, I think that affirms that I'm doing the right thing.
Right.
And then I'll say one more thing is the student orgs. I'm in a good amount of them. I love them. They're fun. The people are great. No, I recommend getting involved.
And that's what I was going to say. Like, you're from ASU. We love ASU, but let's face it, it's not Yale or Princeton. Were they like, are you in groups with like Princeton, Yale, ASU? And they're like, oh, ASU. I mean, are you kind of an outlier, or?
I mean, definitely. They the way they do it at HLS, they put you in a section of 80 people just for the first year. I think there's 7 different sections, and you take all your same classes with those same 80 people the entire first year. And of the 80 people, I think 3 of us went to state schools.
Wow.
And I was a little nervous that people would be like, ASU, but people kind of love it. They're like, oh, really? What was it like? It really is a strength, I think, because, I mean, there's a million people from Princeton applying. Like, it is kind of a leg up. And like, look, this is cool. I did a lot of cool stuff at ASU. I really liked it.
Yeah, that's awesome. One, it helps the university profile, but also I think people do like the fact that I'm not saying everyone who goes to Yale, Princeton, etc., from the rich families, but studies do suggest that they are from the upper middle class, class.
Well, yeah. Yep. I definitely feel like an outlier there. But yeah, no, it helps you stand out. People like not an underdog story, because ASU's fantastic. There's a lot of things that I wouldn't have been able to do anywhere else other than ASU. Like, I wouldn't change that for the world. But the maybe unexpected, again, I mean, I can't imagine how many people from Princeton or even Harvard undergrad applied, and they're like, all right, what's
You're obviously there, right? What would you say is the best thing about a good application? Now, we could probably talk about this for hours, but is there anything? And you did an interview, which I found interesting. I think more law schools are going to do it, because once they see Harvard and Yale doing it, we have to do it too, because they do it. You know how it is.
Yes. Ooh. I think, all right, 2 main things. I kind of talked about the purpose thing, but I'm really going to stress it. I work with the admissions office, and they say the thing that they find most often is people applying because they think they have to. Is COVID, everyone went, oh, I guess I'm gonna go to grad school. Which, listen, I did it too, like that not not shaming the COVID grad school people, but yeah, so you don't need to have like a 10-year plan. I think I thought you needed to when I applied, but you don't. You just kind of have to have like a good reason. And my good reason was, law, I think, is one of the best mediums to make policy changes. And I want to make policy changes. I don't need to tell them exactly what I want to do. I still don't really know exactly what I want to do, but they're not, they just want a good reason. And then second thing is, I think my favorite thing that an admissions officer has told me is, we're looking for people who we would have wanted to be classmates with.
Oh, wow.
And
That's a good, yeah.
I think that's great. So like in the interview, being personable on your resume, like being involved. Yeah, people want the classmates who are super involved, who, kind of have unique, fun interests, putting a little interest thing in your resume. Love it. They love it. So I I recommend,
I see that first part a lot. Like, why law? Oh, I did an internship. That's not really, a million people have done an internship. You need like some kind of a passion, right? Like, okay, I've been thinking of this. I want policy change in this area. This is important to me, etc. Opposed to like, oh, during the summer of 2013, I did this internship in Phoenix, which can be good. I'm not saying it's bad, but that's not exactly a passion, right? That's not a purpose.
No, and they want people who are excited about doing this, which it's kind of boring sometimes. Like, there's a lot of intricacies of law school that are not for everyone. So they want to really know that like you want to do this. So show them, give them a cool
anything in the interview you could share, like you thought was one good point? One of the things I thought was weird, it was only one person and you. I thought it would be a panel. That's pretty intimidating in a way.
It was really intimidating. And the fact that it was 15 minutes, that was horrifying to me, because I feel like you finally start to get your bearing in the first 10 minutes and then it's done. And you're like, well, I guess I was just nervous talking for most of it. But no, so they don't really ask you the questions that you think they're going to ask you. I think I prepared for a lot of standard, like, why law? What did you do at ASU? But they were all very unique questions. And
what was the one that threw you off the most, if you had to choose one, if you remember?
God, I think, this one really got me. Was look back on your undergrad experience, and if you could change anything about it, what would it be and why? And I was like, there was no way that
what did you end up saying?
I think I said that I did not go anywhere out of my comfort zone until maybe
that's a good
junior year. Which, I stuck with what I knew. I did like student government. I'd done that forever, and finally junior year, I was like, okay, you know what? Let's switch it up a bit. I started taking performance classes. I started doing a bunch of different random stuff, got involved with the campaign, and things like that. And if they ask, like, what would you change, or like, what's your biggest weakness, like, maybe not an answer of like, I was just too hardworking, or like, I was just too passionate.
Right. I hate when I do the mock interviews, I hate that. Like, oh, I'm so hard on myself, I succeed. And all that stuff. It's like, no, I mean, it's not like a real answer.
No, like you gotta be honest. They can tell when you're not being genuine. And I feel like that's a good amount of law school interviews. It's like, all right, I have to put on this professional persona. Just be yourself. It'll work. And I've heard that they really only offer interviews to people who are like, they're pretty sure are going to be accepted. It's kind of
really?
Yeah, it's kind of a vibe check. So they want to know that I forget what year Harvard started doing interviews for law school, but it was more recent than you think because they realized that they were admitting a lot of like kind of robots. I don't know, like a lot of the same kind of people. And so they're like, okay, let's get some fresh, new perspectives and
Yeah, and that's what the diversification is all about. It's not necessarily just one thing. It can be like someone from a state school, someone from rural Alabama. We don't have anyone here from rural Tennessee. Something like that, I think, really enriches a university environment instead of having the same people. And I think you coming from a state school, your experience, etc., is absolutely amazing.
that God, I wouldn't change it for anything, and I think it's really helped me here too. I I have a way easier time. I don't take myself too seriously. I think I
Wow.
used to, but
Yeah.
which is funny. I watched the video that we did back in 2019, and
Oh yeah.
I'm so glad I've mellowed out. Like, good, I'm very happy for.
Yeah, you seem more relaxed.
Yeah, I'm not super high strung anymore. That also, this is a tangent. I also think that's because I took 2 years between undergrad and law school. I honestly, even if you just take 1 year, I'm such a big proponent of taking even just a little bit of time.
Yeah, what was that? Did you get accepted and you can defer it, or you got? Because I knew another student that did that too. We had another student at Harvard as well. I, go ahead.
First of all, I might know them. I think we all know each other if this was a year or two. Anyway, so I did the junior deferral program. So got in the summer before my senior year, applied junior year, and then through that program they give you the year to finish school and then 2 gap years to as long as you're doing something in the gap years, then they will let you do it. And then you go after those 2 years. And it was really cool to see all the things that different people did in their gap years. One of my favorite people here ran a food truck for 2 years.
Wow.
Like, you get to just be a person and like get some more clarity as to who you are and what you want to
You weren't
do.
nervous you'd kind of fall out of the writing, reading, and all that stuff. You get lazy. I don't know.
That people definitely, I definitely hear that, and I think I was just too excited. I think I
Yeah,
just was
you seem
so
very
excited.
like engaged, and I think that's probably what tipped you over that's the tipping point. Because there's probably a lot of people out there, 4.0, good recommendation, etc. What differentiates these candidates? And you're very engaged, you know what kind of law, the policy that you want to get into, even though you don't have this 10-year plan. I'm sure that came across during the interview and during the process, generally speaking.
That 100%. I think I thought that I had a 10-year plan. Uh, there was also I came into law school being like, I want to be president of Harvard Law Review. I'm gonna be a Supreme Court clerk and scratch all that.
Yeah.
I just happen to be here.
Yeah, being older, I realize 10-year plans are usually not as doable as you think.
No, you're gonna make a plan and it is
Right.
gonna change and it's gonna change again. So just ride, just
And
ride
and
the wave.
something caught me. You work in the admissions?
I do. I do. I love it. I'm an admissions fellow, so any tours they have, any prospective
Wow.
student events, any admitted student events,
Is that just for law or generally speaking?
just for law.
Okay.
And no, it's so fun. And so it's a lot of in-person stuff, but then also they just list the fellows on like the law school website and our information, and people can just cold email us.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and we're so happy to do it. I feel like a lot of law schools do that too. So if people want to, like, they have a school in mind, look it up. They
That's a
probably have.
great idea. So it's basically called like a fellow. I'm sure every university might use different discourse or something like that. But yeah, reach out, speak with the people, don't be nervous.
100%. Like, make as an informed decision as you can.
Mhm.
Every school is wildly different from each other. You got to pick what's right for you, and it takes a little bit to know what that is. So yeah, ask a bunch of questions. Some of my favorite encounters at admitted students events are people who are choosing between 3 different schools, and we sit down and talk about it, and they leave knowing that they don't want to do HLS, that they want to do another one. Like, what we want is, as long as you know where you want to go and where you're going to be happy.
Right. That's great advice. And I'll finish here unless you have something else to talk about. But I have a question. What best advice do you have for, like, say, you needed a resume, you need a cover letter, that whole personal statement, getting letters of recommendation? A lot of students, especially the letters of recommendation, they'll come up to me freaking out, like at the end of their 4th year, and say, I don't know what letter to get. I told you this before. This is something you really have to start thinking about now. So I was wondering if there's any good advice for all of those issues that kind of creep up on students and they don't realize, like, I need a statement, a personal statement. Who am I? You know what I mean? It's like, who are you? This is a very existential process.
Oh, 100%. And you're absolutely right about it creeps up on you, especially with letters of rec. As early as you can start thinking about that, like, start thinking about it. And the cool thing is, I was freaking out about it because I thought that every single one of my letters needed to be from a professor, but that's not true.
Could you
I
expand
did,
on that?
yeah, absolutely. I did one professor, uh one employer, and then someone I worked with. So coworker, employer, and professor. And I think you could do 4 letters of rec, but minimum 2, and I did 3. So,
Yeah, it's a good
like,
number.
just, yeah, people who can vouch for you really well, because I can't imagine how many letters of rec are just like, they're a good student, from people you just don't know super well. So
You
yeah,
mean generic letters?
yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's what I tell the students. Make a laundry list, remind the professor, especially online students. I tell them, take a professor more than once if you can get along with her or him. I'm telling you, these generic letters will kill you. I mean, they'll kill you.
Yep. That, again, any opportunity you can take to stand out, you got to do it, and that very much includes the letters of rec. So yeah, start thinking about it early. Pick people who know you very well. They don't all
Right.
got to be professors. Just uh, do what'll convey who you are best. And
Right.
then resume wise, I found that a lot of law schools, or just like schools in general, like, I know Harvard has a little database of, like, resume templates and a bunch of tips and tricks. Do that. Go to whatever school you want to go to. They will have, like, a resume tips and tricks bank thing. Use it. It's
Mm.
very helpful. I did not know how to do a good resume before I found that.
Wow, that's really, because you're not thinking about it all the time. And a lot of people are just waitressing, waitering, bartending, but that can be valuable experience, like you just said about the food truck.
Yes.
So it is interesting, your conflict resolution skills. I tell the students, how many times as a waitress, someone said something bad and you have to calm them down or something like that. A lot of good skills there.
Exactly. And I feel like uh people think that they need to have a million
Right.
internships in their resume. You don't. Also, you can use student organization experience as work experience.
And that's
And
the thing about ASU. There's like everything. Oh, I have a hangnail. Oh, there's a group for that. ASU is so massive. There's so many of these groups. You know what I mean? It's like they're like all over the place. Every you come from Saudi Arabia, you come from Latin America. You know what I mean? You're Republican, Democrat, liberal, uncommitted. I mean, there's everything at ASU.
that's find your thing. There is going to be something that you would be excited be a part of. Yeah, list that on your resume. Serving or bartending, like list it too, as long as you can convey, which there are a lot of great perks. I've done it, convey the perks. And
Yeah,
you know,
and the thing is, it's like balancing your time, working under pressure, getting a 4.0, not just because my parents are paying, but I'm working, 40 hours a week at Subway or Burger King. I mean, that stuff is pretty impressive when people are working, they come in, I painted a house and now I'm here in class.
that exactly. And I mean, imagine how many resumes are like legal internship, and again,
Right.
standing out. Like if you got one, cool, that's
Right.
that's great, it won't hurt. But yeah, use your real life experience. Don't stress too hard about it. I know that y'all have stuff that you've been up to, and that could fit well on there. But yeah, start thinking about it as early as you can.
Right.
Personal statement though, you're
Yeah,
very
that's what scares people. They're like, who am I? What, I'm nobody. They get start getting all freaked out.
yep, that's what God, and I think the overthinking part of it too makes it the hardest, because uh I think people think that they either A, have to write a wildly detailed 10-year plan, or
Right.
B, like a crazy trauma story. Which listen, did I write about my crazy trauma story? Yeah, but you don't need to do that. I think I overdid it a little bit there too. Like I could have been a little more myself, but no, one of my friends wrote about the how movie theaters are dying. One of my friends wrote about like this her experience doing fencing club in undergrad. Uh
Wow.
yeah,
Fencing club. That's funny.
I know. I was like, this is fun. You just got to be authentic. I know that that's so vague, or might seem like a cop out answer, but th- there is no, like, I don't know, there's no bad angle as long as you're conveying like
Yourself.
yeah, everyone has a cool perspective, everyone does. Convey that cool perspective, and again, they want people that they would have wanted to be classmates with.
Right.
So like I talked about how I want to bring my perspective as someone with disabilities, and like apply that in what we learn, and just that different perspective. And people want cool different perspectives, and in their classmates. And yeah.
Right. And you don't have to like break the atom or like, Oppenheimer movie or something. I was just created the nuclear bomb. I think that's what people get kind of stressed about. They're thinking, and they're always comparing, like, oh, I know someone who did this amazing thing and, jogged across the planet or something,
I forgot to say that when you asked about the hardest part of law school, because first year for sure, and I think also the comparison. Looking around, and there's always going to be people like pulling all-nighters, or where you don't need to compare yourself to anyone at the school. You got to just do your own thing, and do what works for you. But going back to personal statement, and circling back to reaching out. If you reach out to current students and ask them to look at your personal statement and give guidance, they will.
Wow.
They will. I've done it a lot, and
That's
sometimes it's a
nice.
numbers game. Maybe not everyone will respond, but like a surprising amount of people will. So reach out. Like they're there to help.
Right. That's awesome advice. I the thing especially, I think people are reluctant to reach out because they're like, who am I? I mean, we're all insecure to a certain degree. And I think that this process of applying to schools, you're going through what we call, anime, that is your structures are at a sudden, out, you're not an undergraduate anymore. You have to be a real person and, do something, you're not in school. And people start getting anxiety ridden, sometimes really depressed. And I think, this is a time to really gain focus and understand, look, calm down. You're going to do well. You're young, you got to really start thinking about, who you are. And then that comes out in the personal statement. It doesn't have to be you broke the atom, and don't compare. So I do in the professional development class, all these people are like, I'm comparing myself to, like, they'll mention a name. And I'm like, you can't do that. Everyone is on his or her own path.
Yep. Yeah, comparison is what'll kill you. Like, everyone has a cool story. Everyone has, different stuff. Yeah, it's just not helpful. Because, I can't compare my disability story to my friend's movie theater story, to my friend's fencing story, or my, work experience doing campaign stuff in my gap years compared to my classmate doing food truck stuff. Like, it's all cool. And yeah, you don't gotta do what you think is the standard thing of, like, oh,
That's kind of what makes Facebook and all these things kind of dangerous in a way, because people always go, "Oh, I'm doing this and this," and it gets like real. So according to studies, really, really bad, because people say, "Oh, well, I'm not, like this," or So yeah, you got to be who you are, and I think that's one of the best pieces of advice. It's generic, but it's still true, right? Be who you are. You have to be who you are. And then your story will come out sooner or later. Of course, you have to be engaging in other things. You can't just, not do anything all your undergrad. I say that too. I say, well, if you didn't do anything, now you've got to compensate somehow in the post-undergraduate world.
That's exactly it. That's exactly what I was gonna say. Was, yeah, if you just kind of, and it's cool if you're just doing school, but if you want to come in with a strong grad school app, like, you got to do some cool things in the meantime, whether that's in school or whether that is your gap years. And I'm just such a big gap year proponent.
Why do you like, I'll end with that. Why do you like it so much? You don't want to do me. I lived in Nicaragua 8 years. So I mean, then you're like, I'm 50 and I want to go to school. But what's so great about the gap year? Because I like them too. People get there, but they're not for everyone. If you're one of those people that really can fall behind, it can be bad, obviously. But why did it work for you, do you think?
Oh God, I'm a much better student now than what I would have been going in terms of, I don't know if I would have wanted to be classmates with 20-year-old Mackenzie. She was
that's awesome. Yeah.
She was high strung. Like, you learn so much more about yourself when you get to be a person for a little bit. And I would say, like, 75% of my classmates took at least 2 years in between.
Wow.
A lot of them did 5. I know someone who did 25. He was a professional basketball player, actually. Like,
wow.
Yeah, a bunch of cool stuff. Like, find out more about yourself. And now I come in with a lot more clarity. And it also, like, I was a little burnt out of school for a bit. So having that break and then coming back came in full force. And I do hate to say it. Sometimes you can just kind of tell who goes straight through and who doesn't, just in terms of, like, I mean, I don't think I would have been a great going straight through. Sometimes people are great at it. That's awesome. They're already a person. They know themselves. I didn't. So
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have been. I'm like you. I wouldn't want to be a colleague of mine back. For me, it was more maturity. It took me like 20 years to mature a little. And I think that's what people have to say to themselves, and I think sometimes the problem, this is going to sound weird, like parents are like, oh, you got to do this. But sometimes, hey, I'm not mature enough to do this. I know myself. I'm not ready. Being a parent now myself, you start seeing how, well, wait a minute, maybe he's not ready for this. I have 2 sons. That's why I say he. I'm sure it's with the girls. Maybe she's like, you're on these different paths and you don't compare them to other kids. You never do that, like, because that makes them feel bad, because it's like, it's the same thing with, I'm sure, this situation. Maybe there's a 20-year-old who's super mature right now as a senior at ASU, and you're not mature, but wait, you're just, you'll be mature in a few years, or you'll get it together in a few years. Everyone takes a while. Don't get depressed. Don't, sit and sulk in your room. This is one of the things I think is really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone has their milestones at different parts of their lives. There's no clear-cut way to do any of this. And yeah, if you go when you're not ready, you're not going to enjoy it, and you're going to struggle. That's just how it is. First year was really tough. It is really tough as it is, but if you're doing it when you might not be ready, it's gonna be really hard.
Oh yeah.
You don't
Especially
need
if you didn't take those gap years. Wow, that would have been.
Oh my God.
But it's good you know yourself that well now.
Yeah, God, and I'm very glad. I think maybe I thought that I could have gone straight through, but I did the deferral program, so gave me those gap years. I was like, yeah, I might as well. Oh my God, I'm so glad.
And you don't always have to take the quote unquote deferral. You can literally apply, a couple years after. I'm doing this more towards general postgraduate work. People are like, I have to go to graduate school now. I go, no, you don't. You can wait a couple years. I always say, keep in touch with the professor. Maybe, once a year, once every 6 months, write to him or her about what you're doing to keep up. Remember me, blah, blah, blah. Because ASU is a big school. So we gotta, it's not a small liberal arts. And, sometimes you do need that time off. You need to travel to Europe, teach English in Japan, these little things that people don't really think about. And those are options that, I think there's a lot of pressure on people who are seniors.
Yes, yeah. Like take your time. Also, I've gotten the question of well, first of all, if you apply to law school, grad school, you get in, you can defer. Like you can go, hey, rather do it next year. It's totally fine. Second thing is people have asked me once they get into law school, like, oh, what should I do in the meantime to prepare? And I was like, do anything but law. Like, what should I do with my summer? I'm like, travel. Hang out with your friends and family. Like, you're gonna be doing this for a while. So like, go. You don't need to spend your summer studying. It's not gonna help you. Like, it's gonna be a very new experience, no matter what. So
Right. And I do have one more question I forgot I wanted to ask to make sure it's uniform. A lot of people tell me in law school it's just a final exam at the end of the semester. Is that true basically with most law schools? I mean, that's grueling.
it's terrifying. But yeah, yep. We every single class, it's just one final exam at the end. Some of them, a lot of them were 8-hour exams, which I never thought that I would need 8 hours. Some of my 8-hour exams were 3 questions, and it took all 8 hours. They give you crazy hypos.
Wow.
But yeah, sometimes they're 8 hours, sometimes they're 3. I kind of like it because sometimes things don't make sense until the very end of the semester.
Oh, that's good then in a way.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. If you tried to test me in civil procedure halfway through, game over. That would not have been good. Yeah, you got to get a little time to put together all the pieces. You're like, all right.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great, because then people have to say to themselves, do I want law school right there? Can I handle that stress? You need to have a passion and a direction in order to be handle, cognitively this stress. Why am I here? Whatever law school you go to.
It's very universal. And with grad schools in general, like none of it is going to be easy. And yeah, you just got to know that it's what you want to do. I know so many people who went to grad school and they were like, well, that, I didn't really help, or it wasn't something they would have done if they were to choose all over again. Yeah. And if you have to take a little time before realizing like, oh, this is something I want to do, cool. Yeah, do it.
Right.
To just to sit down with yourself and see where you're at. Maybe you're
That-
ready, maybe not.
That's awesome advice. Well, we want to thank you so much, Mackenzie. You make ASU proud, and that advice is absolutely amazing. But we want to thank you from the whole community at ASU for doing this.
No, absolutely. I'm thank you for having me. I I love ASU so much. Also, I don't know when people are going to be watching this video, but if they ever want to reach out to me and ask for guidance, I am around.
Wow. Well, you're gonna get hit with 1,000 emails now.
Good, good. I'm happy to do it, truly. And there's a bunch of other people who will be happy to help too. So
Thanks so much, Mackenzie. Take care.
absolutely. All right, you too. It's great to see you.